Do you remember that Christmas Eve when a New York cop took on an entire terrorist organization with nothing but his wit, determination, and a machine gun? Do you ever wonder what happened to those unforgettable faces that brought one of cinema's greatest action thrillers to life? Released in 1988, Die Hard didn't just redefine the action genre, it created a blueprint that Hollywood still follows today. This wasn't just another explosion-filled blockbuster. It was a masterclass in tension, character development, and pure cinematic adrenaline. The film transformed Bruce Willis from a television comedy actor into an action superstar, while giving us one of cinema's most sophisticated villains in Hans Gruber. The movie introduced us to an ensemble cast that would become forever etched in film history. From the calculating brilliance of Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber to the warm-hearted support of Reginald VelJohnson's Sergeant Powell, each character brought something unique to this Christmas action masterpiece. There was the tech-savvy Theo, the brutal Carl, the incompetent Deputy Chief Robinson, and the sleazy reporter Thornburg, each playing their part in this deadly game of cat and mouse 37 floors above Los Angeles. But time, that great equalizer, spares no one, not even Hollywood legends. The bright lights of fame that once illuminated these actors' faces have dimmed for some, while others continue to shine in different ways. Some have gracefully aged into distinguished character actors. Others have faced personal battles that would rival any action sequence. And sadly, some have left us entirely, taking with them irreplaceable pieces of cinematic magic. What became of the man who made us believe that sometimes one person really can make a difference? How did the career of cinema's most elegant villain unfold after that iconic fall from Nakatomi Plaza? Where are the supporting players who made this Christmas action film feel so authentic and lived in? Join us as we step back into 1988. When shoulder pads were fashionable, hair was bigger, and a simple premise about a cop trapped in a building became the stuff of legend. Then we'll travel forward to 2025 to discover how time has treated the talented individuals who brought this modern classic to life. Some stories will surprise you. Others may sadden you. But all of them remind us that behind every great film are real people with real lives, dreams, struggles, and triumphs. Remember that moment when John McClane, barefoot and bloodied, looked straight into the camera and delivered his now legendary line? Who could have predicted that this television comedian would become one of action cinema's most enduring heroes? The past 1988. At 33 years old, Bruce Willis was primarily known for his comedic role as David Addison in the TV series Moonlighting. With his boyish charm, receding hairline, and that distinctive smirk, he was an unlikely choice for an action hero. Hollywood executives were skeptical. Could this wisecracking TV actor really carry a major action film? Die Hard changed everything. Willis brought an everyman quality to John McClane that set him apart from the muscle-bound action stars of the era. He wasn't a superhuman warrior. He was a regular guy who happened to be in the wrong place at the right time. His vulnerability, humor, and determination made McClane feel real and relatable. The film's success catapulted Willis into the A-list stratosphere. He commanded higher salaries, gained creative control over projects, and became synonymous with the action genre. The Die Hard franchise spawned multiple sequels, with Willis reprising his role as McClane 4 more times over the next 25 years. The present, 2025. At 69 years old, Bruce Willis faces perhaps his greatest battle yet. In 2022, his family revealed that he had been diagnosed with aphasia, a condition affecting his ability to communicate. Later, This diagnosis was refined to frontotemporal dementia, a progressive brain disorder that affects language, behavior, and personality. Willis has stepped away from acting, marking the end of a career that spanned over 4 decades and included iconic films like Pulp Fiction, The Sixth Sense, and Armageddon. His final years in Hollywood were marked by a series of low-budget action films, leading some critics to question his motivation and dedication to his craft. Today, Willis lives quietly with his wife, Emma Hemming Willis, and their 2 young daughters, while maintaining a close relationship with his ex-wife, Demi Moore, and their 3 adult children. His family has been remarkably open about his condition, raising awareness about dementia while protecting his privacy and dignity. The man who once saved Nakatomi Plaza now faces a different kind of fight, one without explosions or one-liners, but requiring the same courage that made John McClane a hero. His legacy remains untouchable. He proved that action heroes don't need to be perfect. They just need to be human. Can you hear that cultured English accent even now? Asking Mr. Takagi. I could talk about industrialization and men's fashion all day, but I'm afraid work must intrude. Who knew that a classically trained stage actor would create cinema's most charming psychopath? The past 1988. At 42, Alan Rickman was virtually unknown to American audiences when he stepped into the role of Hans Gruber, a Royal Shakespeare Company veteran with a distinguished theater career. Rickman had never appeared in a major film. His casting was a gamble that paid off spectacularly. Rickman's Hans Gruber wasn't your typical action movie villain. He was cultured, intelligent, and sophisticated, a man who could discuss art and philosophy while orchestrating a billion-dollar heist. Rickman's delivery was measured and precise, making even the most threatening dialogue sound like poetry. His portrayal was so compelling that he made audiences almost root for the villain. The role launched Rickman's film career and established him as Hollywood's go-to sophisticated antagonist. He would go on to play memorable villains in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and later find a new generation of fans as Professor Severus Snape in the Harry Potter series. The legacy. Alan Rickman passed away in 2016. Rickman continued to challenge himself throughout his career, never allowing himself to be typecast, despite his success as a villain. He directed films, returned to the stage regularly, and took on romantic roles in films like Truly, Madly, Deeply, and Sense and Sensibility. His portrayal of Severus Snape in the Harry Potter films introduced him to a new generation of fans and showcased his ability to bring depth and complexity to seemingly unlikable characters. He kept Snape's true nature secret for years, even from his co-stars, honoring J.K. Rowling's trust. In January 2016, the world lost Alan Rickman to pancreatic cancer at the age of 69. He had kept his illness private, continuing to work until the end. His death sent shockwaves through the entertainment world and beyond, with tributes pouring in from colleagues, fans, and even strangers whose lives he had touched through his performances. Rickman's legacy lives on in every nuanced villain performance that followed. He proved that the best antagonists aren't just evil, they're human, complex, and sometimes even sympathetic. In the quiet moments between the action, we can still hear his voice, reminding us that true villainy lies not in loudness, but in the whispered threat that chills the soul. When Die Hard exploded onto screens in 1988, it transformed a television comedian into an action legend and gave us one of cinema's most sophisticated villains. This Christmas thriller created unforgettable characters. But what happened to those memorable faces after the cameras stopped rolling? Bruce Willis was just 33 when he traded his comedic moonlighting persona for John McClane's blood-soaked shoes. Nobody expected this wisecracking TV star to become an action icon. But Willis brought an everyman vulnerability that resonated worldwide. He wasn't a superhuman warrior, just a regular guy in the wrong place at the right time. Armed with determination and that distinctive smirk, today at 69, Willis faces his greatest battle. The man who once saved Nakatomi Plaza stepped away from acting in 2022 following a frontotemporal dementia diagnosis. He lives quietly with wife Emma Hemming Willis and their daughters. While his family courageously raises dementia awareness, the actor who proved heroes just need to be human now demonstrates that same humanity in his most personal fight. Alan Rickman was 42 when he created Hans Gruber, cinema's most charming psychopath. This Royal Shakespeare Company veteran was unknown to American audiences, yet his cultured villain, discussing art while orchestrating billion-dollar heists, redefined movie antagonists. His measured delivery made threatening dialogue sound like poetry, creating a villain so compelling audiences almost rooted for him. We lost Rickman in January 2016 to pancreatic cancer at 69. From romantic leads to Professor Snape and Harry Potter, he never allowed typecasting. His legacy lives in every nuanced villain since, proving the best antagonists aren't just evil, they're complex and human. Reginald VelJohnson brought authentic warmth to Sergeant Al Powell at 36, becoming McClane's emotional lifeline throughout that deadly Christmas Eve. His natural empathy and fatherly presence elevated the entire film, leading to his starring role as America's favorite TV dad on Family Matters. At 73, VelJohnson continues working steadily, greeting fans at conventions with the same warmth that made Powell memorable. He represents something rare in Hollywood, a genuine performer who understands that supporting roles can be the most important of all. Time has been both kind and cruel to Die Hard's cast. Some evolved into distinguished performers. Others faced personal battles. And some have left us entirely, yet their legacy endures, reminding us that behind every great film are real people who gave us a Christmas action masterpiece that still thrills audiences nearly 4 decades later. Do you remember the chilling intensity of Carl's pursuit of McClane? Driven by revenge for his fallen brother? Who could have imagined that this terrifying killer was once considered one of the world's greatest ballet dancers? The past 1988. At 39, Alexander Godunov was living one of Hollywood's most unique career transitions. Born in Russia, he had been a principal dancer with the Bolshoi Ballet, one of the most prestigious dance companies in the world. In 1979, while on tour in New York, Godunov made the dramatic decision to defect to the United States, causing an international incident when his wife was temporarily prevented from leaving the Soviet Union. Godunov's Karl was a departure from typical action movie henchman, standing 6'1" with flowing blonde hair and piercing eyes. He brought an almost balletic grace to his violence. His background in dance gave him a physical presence that was both elegant and menacing. He moved like a predator, every gesture controlled and purposeful. The role marked Godunov's transition from the world of high art to popular entertainment. He had appeared in Witness with Harrison Ford in 1985, but Die Hard showcased his ability to be genuinely frightening while maintaining an almost aristocratic bearing. The tragic end: Alexander Godunov died in 1995. After Die Hard, Godunov continued to work in films, appearing in The Money Pit with Tom Hanks and several other productions. However, his career never quite reached the heights many expected. He struggled with the transition from his artistic background to commercial filmmaking, and personal demons began to take their toll. Godunov battled alcoholism throughout the 1990 seconds, a struggle that affected both his personal relationships and professional opportunities. He became increasingly reclusive, living alone in his West Hollywood apartment. On May 18, 1995, Alexander Godunov was found dead in his apartment at the age of 45. The cause of death was ruled as complications from chronic alcoholism. His body wasn't discovered for several days. A tragic end for someone who had once commanded standing ovations from audiences around the world. Godunov's death marked the loss of a unique talent who had successfully bridged two very different worlds. In Carl, he created a villain who was cultured and dangerous, bringing an unexpected sophistication to the role that elevated every scene he was in. Like a tragic ballet, his life ended too soon, leaving behind the memory of perfect, deadly grace frozen in time on screen. Remember when Theo cracked that final lock and declared, "I'm in the vault," with such confidence? Who knew that this tech-savvy criminal would help predict the digital age decades before it fully arrived? The past, 1988. At 36, Clarence Gilliard Jr. was a working actor who had appeared in various television shows and films, but Die Hard gave him one of his most memorable roles as Theo, the computer expert of Hans Gruber's crew. Gilliard portrayed a character that was ahead of its time, a criminal who relied on technology and intellect rather than just brute force. Theo was the team's problem solver, the one who could bypass electronic security systems and crack computer codes. In 1988, when personal computers were still relatively new and the internet was barely a concept, Gilliard's character represented a new breed of criminal that would become increasingly relevant in the digital age. Gilliard brought a cocky confidence to Theo, playing him as someone who genuinely enjoyed the intellectual challenge of his work. His chemistry with the other members of Gruber's team helped establish the sense that these weren't just random thugs, but a sophisticated operation. The present, 2025. At 73, Clarence Gilliard Jr. has lived a life that extended far beyond acting. After Die Hard, he became well known for his role as Conrad McMasters on the TV series Matlock alongside Andy Griffith, and later as James Jimmy Trevette on Walker, Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris. However, Gilliard made a significant career change in the early 2000s. He left acting to pursue education, earning a master's degree and eventually becoming a professor of theater arts at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He dedicated himself to teaching and mentoring young actors, sharing his decades of experience in the entertainment industry. Gilliard has been married twice and has 5 children. He's spoken about how his faith became increasingly important to him over the years, influencing his decision to move away from Hollywood and focus on education and family. Today, while he occasionally makes appearances at conventions and fan events, Gilliard seems most proud of his work as an educator. He represents a different path for actors, one where the skills and knowledge gained in entertainment can be passed on to the next generation. His Theo may have been a criminal mastermind, but Clarence Gilliard Jr. became a teacher, showing that sometimes the best performance is the life you build off-screen. Can you still see Deputy Chief Robinson's frustrated face as his carefully planned operation crumbled around him? Who would have believed that this symbol of bureaucratic incompetence would become one of cinema's most memorably ineffective authority figures? The past, 1988. At 50, Paul Gleason was a veteran character actor who had spent decades perfecting the art of playing authority figures you love to hate. With his stern expression, authoritative voice, and natural ability to embody bureaucratic arrogance, Gleason was perfectly cast as the deputy police chief who consistently made the wrong decisions. Robinson represented everything wrong with rigid thinking and ego-driven leadership. While John McClane tried to communicate the reality of the situation inside Nakatomi Plaza, Robinson dismissed him, preferring to stick to his textbook approach even when it was clearly failing. Gleason played the character with just enough competence to make his incompetence frustrating rather than laughable. This role came just 4 years after Gleason's career-defining performance as Principal Vernon in The Breakfast Club, establishing him as Hollywood's go-to actor for flawed authority figures. His ability to make audiences simultaneously respect and despise his characters was a rare talent. The legacy. Paul Gleason passed away in 2006, following Die Hard. Gleason continued to work steadily, often playing similar authority figures in films and television. He appeared in Not Another Teen Movie and various TV shows, always bringing his distinctive brand of stern authority to his roles. Gleason was known in the industry as a consummate professional who took his craft seriously. Despite often playing unlikable characters, he was well regarded by colleagues and directors who appreciated his reliability and skill. His personal life was relatively private. Though he was known to be devoted to his family and took pride in his Irish heritage, he continued working until his health began to decline in the mid-2000s. Paul Gleason died on May 27, 2006, at the age of 67, after a battle with lung cancer. His death marked the end of a career spent mastering a very specific type of character, the authority figure whose authority was questionable. In Deputy Chief Robinson, Gleason created a character that represented every frustrating encounter with inflexible bureaucracy. He reminded us that sometimes the biggest obstacles aren't the obvious villains, but the people who should be helping but can't see beyond their own limitations. His legacy lives on every time we watch someone in charge make the obviously wrong decision with complete confidence. Remember the moment when Richard Thornburg's relentless pursuit of a story put Holly McClane's life in danger? Who could have predicted that this sleazy reporter would become a prophetic warning about media ethics decades before social media made everyone a potential journalist? The past 1988. At 41, William Atherton had already established himself as one of Hollywood's premier portrayers of unlikable characters. With his sharp features, nasal voice, and natural ability to embody smugness, Atherton was perfectly cast as the ambitious television reporter who would do anything for a story. Thornburg represented everything wrong with sensationalist journalism. He was willing to endanger innocent people, exploit tragedy, and ignore basic human decency if it meant getting an exclusive. Atherton played him with just enough charm to make him believable as someone who could talk his way into anywhere, while never letting audiences forget his essential selfishness. This role built on Atherton's previous work in films like The Sugarland Express and Ghostbusters, where he had already proven his ability to make audiences despise him while remaining utterly watchable. His Thornburg was journalism at its worst, technically competent but morally bankrupt. The present, 2025. At 77, William Atherton has continued working steadily throughout his career. Though he's never quite escaped being typecast as the villain audiences love to hate, he's appeared in numerous films and television shows, often playing authority figures, bureaucrats, or other morally questionable characters. Atherton has embraced his reputation as a character actor, understanding that his particular talents fill a specific need in storytelling. He's spoken in interviews about how he approaches these unlikable roles, finding the human elements that make them believable rather than cartoonish. In recent years, Atherton has also worked as a voice actor and has made appearances at film festivals and conventions. He seems to have made peace with his legacy as someone who specialized in playing characters audiences were meant to dislike. Looking back at his Thornburg character through the lens of 2025, Atherton's performance seems remarkably prescient. In an age of social media, 24-hour news cycles, and citizen journalism, the ethical questions raised by his character have become even more relevant. He portrayed a media landscape that prioritized sensation over responsibility decades before it became our reality. Today, Atherton represents a craftsman who found his niche and perfected it. While he may never have been the leading man, his contribution to cinema lies in creating memorable antagonists who served as mirrors for society's flaws. His Thornburg remains a cautionary tale about the price of putting the story before human dignity. Remember the quiet strength of Mr. Dado Takagi as he faced Hans Gruber's threats with unwavering dignity? Who could have known that this brief but powerful performance would represent a lifetime of breaking barriers for Asian American actors in Hollywood? The past. 1988. At 59, James Shigeta was a pioneering figure in Asian American cinema who had spent decades fighting for meaningful representation in Hollywood. Born in Hawaii to Japanese immigrant parents, Shigeta began his career as a singer before transitioning to acting in the 1950 seconds and 60 seconds. His role as Joseph Takagi, the head of the Nakatomi Corporation, was significant not just for the character's dignity and strength, but for what it represented. In an era when Asian characters were often relegated to stereotypical roles, Shigeta's Takagi was a successful businessman, a leader, and ultimately a hero who chose death over betraying his principles. Shigeta brought decades of experience to this relatively small role, imbuing Takagi with a quiet authority that made his confrontation with Hans Gruber genuinely moving. His refusal to give up the access codes, even under threat of death, established him as the film's first true hero, not through violence, but through moral courage. The legacy, James Shigeta, passed away in 2014. Throughout his career, Shigeta appeared in over 60 films and television shows, often fighting against the limited and stereotypical roles offered to Asian actors. He appeared in classics like Flower Drum Song and Bridge to the Sun, and later worked in television on shows like Hawaii Five-0. Shigeta was also a talented singer who recorded several albums and performed in nightclubs around the world. His artistic talents extended beyond acting, making him a true entertainer in the classic sense. He was known for his professionalism and kindness on set, mentoring younger Asian American actors and advocating for better representation in the industry. Many actors who came after him have cited Shigeta as an inspiration and a trailblazer. James Shigeta died on July 28, 2014, at the age of 85, in Los Angeles. His death marked the end of a career that spanned over 5 decades and helped pave the way for future generations of Asian American performers. In Joseph Takagi, Shigeta created a character who represented the best of human nature: integrity, loyalty, and courage in the face of impossible odds. Though his screen time was brief, his impact was profound, reminding audiences that heroism often comes not from those who fight, but from those who refuse to compromise their principles, even unto death. His legacy continues to inspire, like a gentle light that guides others through the darkness toward dignity and honor. From the gleaming towers of 1988's Nakatomi Plaza to the quiet moments of 2025, we've witnessed a journey that encompasses triumph, tragedy, and the relentless passage of time. The cast of Die Hard gave us more than just an action movie. They created characters that have lived in our collective memory for nearly 4 decades. Bruce Willis, our everyman hero, now faces his greatest challenge away from the cameras, reminding us that true courage isn't always about fighting terrorists. Sometimes it's about facing each day with dignity when your own mind becomes the enemy. Alan Rickman left us far too soon, but his sophisticated Hans Gruber remains the gold standard for intelligent villainy. proving that the most dangerous adversaries are those who make us question who we should be rooting for. The supporting players each carved their own unique paths through Hollywood and beyond. Reginald VelJohnson became America's favorite TV father, carrying the same warmth that made Sergeant Powell so beloved. Clarence Gilliard Jr. traded the spotlight for the classroom, finding fulfillment in shaping young minds rather than pursuing fame. The losses along the way, Alexander Godunov's tragic end, Paul Gleason's battle with cancer, James Shigetta's pioneering legacy, remind us that behind every great performance lies a human story with its own joys and sorrows. Some cast members continue working, others have stepped away, and still others have found entirely new purposes in life. What unites them all is their contribution to a film that changed not just their careers, but the entire action genre. Die Hard proved that heroes don't need to be perfect. Villains can be charming. And sometimes the most important battles are fought not with guns, but with words, loyalty, and moral courage. The passage of nearly 40 years has been both kind and cruel to this ensemble. Hair has grayed, voices have deepened, and some have gone silent forever. Yet when we watch Die Hard today, they are all frozen in that perfect moment of cinematic magic, young, vital, and eternal in their roles. The film serves as a time capsule, preserving not just their performances, but a piece of who they were at that specific moment in their lives. Perhaps that's the real magic of cinema. It allows us to hold on to moments that would otherwise be lost to time. While the actors continue their individual journeys through life with its inevitable changes and challenges, their characters remain unchanged, ready to entertain and inspire new generations of viewers. Whether they're still gracing our screens, teaching the next generation, fighting personal battles, or resting in eternal peace, the cast of Die Hard gave us something precious. The belief that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when circumstances demand it. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, they remind us that sometimes, just sometimes, one person really can make all the difference, even if they're just in the wrong place at the right time, barefoot and running out of ammunition. Their legacy continues, echoing through the halls of Nakatomi Plaza and into our hearts, where the best films and performances live forever.